today's panel is going about European digital autonomy, beyond slogans, where do we stand? Last year we had a panel also with Paul Timmers diving into the Euro stack and to all these developments of the Draghi report. So this year we wanted to kind of see, what has evolved since last year. And we have three amazing speakers today. Paul Wijngaard from Future Network Services, Marga Buijs, CEO of Cellnex the Netherlands, and Mathieu Andriessen, the managing director of NLconnect. So welcome you all. And just to express a little bit, what are we talking about when we're talking about digital autonomy? So in a world where technology defines power, digital autonomy is no longer an ambition. It is a question of economic survival and strategic control, especially in the current age where there's so much geopolitically happening. And digital autonomy is not about isolation or protection. It is, in practical terms, it refers to Europe's ability to build, operate, and scale its own critical digital capabilities. Infrastructure, platforms, technologies, and standards without being structurally dependent on external powers or suppliers. It means having real choices, resilient supply chains, trusted networks, competitive companies, and the capacity to innovate at scale. This goes beyond platforms or innovation funding. It is also about who owns, operates, and invests in Europe critical digital infrastructure, from networks to spectrum to long-term capital deployments. The question is not just whether Europe innovates, but whether it structurally controls and sustains its own digital backbone. The key question today is not whether autonomy is desirable, but where we actually stand, what is already working, what is still prevents Europe from getting there. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Marga, the first question is to you. From a pan-European infrastructure operator's perspective, where does Europe genuinely enable long-term scale and investment today? And where does its fragmentation or regulation still hold it back?
Yeah, thank you. If you look at Cellnex, we're an infrastructure provider, and Cellnex operates in 10 different countries. And currently, we already make decisions from a European perspective, where in the past it might be national choices. We make capital investments choices based on European strategy, European risk assessment. And this is happening both in infrastructure as well as in telco, in MNOs. So it's a structural move that you see. And there are a couple of things that already go quite well at the European level. If you look at the recognition of independent parties in the value chain, it's already been seen as essential in the growth of the digital ambition. If you look at the GIA, it already brings like a base for alignment in the regulations. If you look at 5G and the opportunity that is there, in the Netherlands we have 5G, or if you look at Europe, it's a 50% of standalone or 5G deployment, whereas if you look at America, if you look at China, Japan, it's at 80%. So the growth, the data growth that can be there by the upgrade moving to 5G, and also the consumption, the ask, the AI, the growth in data, it already gives a platform for growth, for investment. So a lot of things go already well. Also, if you look at spectrum policies, you see already a movement that it's been looked more and more on a European level, whereas in the past it was super national oriented. So,
and do you then also buy in now differently? So before, I can imagine you have suppliers from all over the world. Is it now also a different strategy to buy more European solutions to kind of make this happen?
well, we do look more from an industrialized perspective. So from a consolidated European partnerships perspective. And that will not mean Europe only, but it does mean that for every single investment, it has been looked at and assessed what is the strategy. Okay. So yeah, the perspective from a European industrialized perspective is already there. But then there's still quite some fragmentation as well. So you asked what are the positive sides, but there are also quite some fragmentation. If you look at GIA, it sets the rules based. If you look at the spectrum auctions that are there, the coming, what is it, from 26 to 35, there are more than 500 licenses that still need to be auctioned. And in the past, it was 100 billion investment.
Wow.
So it's quite important, the choices that will be made there.
Yeah.
It will define the investment structure, the environment of the capital market.
Yes.
And that is at this moment super important going forward, and it's still national.
Yeah.
You see a movement that it's been looked at more and more, but when giving out the spectrum license and the prices are billions, then the MNO needs to absorb that and not being capable of investing it any longer in the infrastructure that comes with it. So what you see is government starts to make more the trade-off between asks on quality, resilience, coverage obligations, those type of things, in trade-off for a higher amount that's been paid for spectrum.
Okay.
And also,
and maybe we can go a little bit there, because we go from 5G also a little bit to 6G. Paul, from a technology and infrastructure standpoint, because we're diving into some of these questions also later, so to broaden a little bit the discussion, how we have the infrastructure perspective from Cellnex, which obviously is in different countries. So very relevant. 5G deployments already in several locations, as you mentioned. Paul, you're working on this next generation. So talking about innovation, I think future network services is really, kind of on the top of those kind of things. So from a technology and infrastructure standpoint, from where future network services stands, which core capabilities does Europe truly control today, and which are still vulnerable or dependent?
Yeah, so the Future Network Services program in the Netherlands works on delivering this digital autonomy, and in the way that we are working on the next generation of this technology, and to build capabilities in the Netherlands, so that we have patents, that we have knowledge, that we have companies who can provide the technology, and by doing so, we create the digital autonomy. And to be a bit more specific, in which areas is it? So we are pretty strong in semicon, and so the next generation mobile network has of course a lot of chips. And if you look at the next generation antenna technology with higher frequencies, with things like joint communication and sensing, there is a lot of innovation in this antenna technology. And that's part of our program. So in the Eindhoven area, many companies like NXP and many others are working on this type of antenna technology, and that's one of the key areas where we focus in our research program.
Interesting.
But if I add another two, so the second one is intelligence. So the network has next generation hardware, but also a lot of intelligence. So to have this intelligence developed. It's the second focus area, and the third one is we work on technology, but we also want to test it in applications. Yeah. So to be ready for the future, you need to involve future use cases, and with companies like Philips, but also in the smart industry, in the smart grid, work with those companies and understand what their future requirements are, so that we can develop the technology. Yeah. And by understanding requirements, developing technology, we work on this digital autonomy. And we do this with all Netherlands or Dutch companies or European companies. And in that way, we prepare ourselves for the future.
Okay.
And bring digital autonomy. But it's not a reason. It's in the end, it's about economic growth. But to be able to have economic growth long term, you need to fix this digital autonomy. Because if you're too dependent, you run into risk, and these risks in the end will translate to economic risks.
Yeah. Maybe Mathieu, because we're going from antennas, intelligence, the rise of AI, you're the managing director of the branch organization of NLconnect. Connecting to all the Dutch operators and the ecosystem around that. So from your perspective, from your industry ecosystem perspective, how ready is Europe's connectivity sector to support real autonomy? And do you connect with some of the things also that is Paul is saying? Because I can imagine the developments in AI, intelligence, and antennas is also relevant, for many of the people you are working with.
Yes, of course it is. Well, so NLconnect is the Dutch trade association of the telecoms industry. We have around 90 members from the Dutch value chain. It's contractors, it's vendors of passive and active optics. It's also operators and providers. And these 90 members are, of course, almost all European companies. There's a few Chinese vendors, but most of them are European companies. And when you look at the telecom at the telco industry or the telecoms industry more in general, I think we have a strong position already as quite a sovereign industry. When you look at the Eurostack report, for example, on the connectivity layer, Europe already has a serious and good position, as opposed to other layers in the stack. When you look at cloud, the position is completely different. When you look at platforms, the position is completely different. And this position, I think, is something to foster. And I completely agree with my neighbor that it takes investment from higher up in the value chain, of course, from the telco operators to make sure that we can invest in a sovereign, in a continuing sovereign infrastructure. And perhaps there's also a chance to invest in some of those other layers. When you look at KPN, one of our members, recently they announced that they have started a partnership with one of the European cloud operators. I think it was the Germans from Nextcloud, and that shows that connectivity can play a role in the other layers as well. But we need to be able to invest. Of course, investment flows in many directions. We invest in sustainability. We invest in 6G and in new technology, but we also need to invest in perhaps in some of those other layers, and we need to be able to make those investments. But I guess we'll come back to that later.
Yeah, like Marga mentioned also before, there is a lot of fragmentation in these investments. So can Europe realistically achieve digital autonomy if its infrastructure investments model remains nationally fragmented?
National fragmentation, if we look at growth and the investment and the consolidation helps in doing long-term growth investments. And the most important thing is stability, certainty. Investment takes a longer term horizon. So we need to understand what is the future and what is the investment model of the spectrum. We need to understand what is the application of the GIA and how will it be fragmented across countries. If we solve uncertainty, it also fosters an environment for longer term capital investment. Less risk means more room for industrial players to invest and to be in the market. And the more national insecurities or national movements that there will be, the more fragmentation, the more insecurity, the higher risk premium. So it is dependent on each other.
And where lies that responsibility? Maybe also a question for you. The responsibility for kind of creating that vision on where to be invest or where then to invest in and kind of look towards that long-term goal. Who should be in the lead for that?
Yeah, I guess when you look at spectrum, this is really a challenge because the government has treated operators as a cash machine in the last few years. Not just in the last few years, they've seen operators as a cash machine for many years. And this has to change, because if it doesn't change, you just cannot invest in the things that you need to invest in. Of course, the responsibility to invest is a responsibility of the MNOs, but to be able to invest, you need to have some space. At the moment, this space has not been created by the government. So in the upcoming spectrum auctions, it has to stop that the operators are seen as a cash cow. There's also another topic when it comes to antennas, because it's becoming increasingly difficult to obtain sites to build antennas, and this also has to change. We need to make sure, from a government perspective, that operators can build out their networks, and to ensure that the Dutch networks remain as good as they are, and they're top of the bill. So for me, that's one of the key things that has to happen.
I fully subscribe to what you're saying. It's, of course, the industry is investing, but it's all about getting the environment. So government on the one side, if you pay for spectrum, and on the other side, the regulation is on price. So where's the margin? Where's the room to invest? So that's one. And other thing, if digital connectivity is important, then help us with getting all the locations, and help us in the regulation around the antenna policy. Where do we stand? Help us in regulating where players in the market are not adding value to the value chain, and get that regulated. So it's the whole ecosystem. It's not one person or one industry responsible.
It requires more collaboration. So it's not only the fragmentation of investment, but it's also the regulations and all the different elements coming together that are kind of making it more complex to move faster as a nation or as Europe in general.
That sets the base. For that sets the surroundings for the industrial players to build the industry.
And Paul, you have to do a lot with you're a growth fund, so you have to do a lot with investment too. Of course, you're really on the innovative side of things, with all the different participants of FNS. Do you recognize this fragmentation, and what is your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I think, but we're moving into a new age, and in the new age, it will be more industry policy driven. In terms of research and development, we've defined the national technology strategy. So we decided in which area do we need to innovate, what are the priorities, and now it comes to execution. And so it helps on one hand that innovation is funded by the government. On the other hand, the government has also enormous purchasing power. So buy Dutch or buy European, that helps to
increase the cash flow basically in Europe or the Netherlands.
Let companies grow. Yes, correct. And in terms of what also helps, and that's what we can do ourselves, is work together. So in innovation, work together. Because in the end, you need to work towards standards. So European alignment on defining standards, and open standards is also important. So it means interoperability, so that you should really stay away from vendor lock-in. So we have now a lot of vendor lock-in by the big tech. So whatever new things we develop, they need to be open, so that it is more enabling to all sorts of new initiatives. So
but that's for, of course, a company a less interesting incentive. So this lies at the buyers, basically, that they kind of mandate this.
Yeah, but there need to be more industry policy. These kind of things you need to drive from top down. And also have a long-term plan there. So not like in spectrum. So there were a couple of years ago that you had to pay billions. And now you pay only a couple of hundreds of million. That goes up and down. It should be, for companies, there should be a long-term plan.
Should be more predictable in a way.
Yeah, and look at
it's logic.
I was at the SNS chat a couple of hours ago, and the Chinese example was known or was mentioned. You know, it's a long-term plan there. And although there are a lot of things in the Chinese system which we should not copy, but the long-term planning, that is really a thing we should adopt. And if we do so, and it applies actually everywhere.
But of course, China is a little bit differently organized, also politically seen than the Netherlands. So,
Yeah.
what prevents us from making this long-term strategy, and who should then be involved in making it? Because we have recently different reports being made from Peter Stolk, from
Peter Wenning.
Peter Wenning,
It was a Draghi report and then the Peter Wenning report. Yeah,
exactly.
correct.
But it feels a little bit as if those reports are then being created, and then there is not the mandate or the structure to kind of move this then to actually a next level, or to even make then a choice together on what is it then that we're going to be focusing on. So how do you see that, and what should then be changed, or and who? How?
Yeah, I'm actually quite positive. When you look at the report by Peter Wenning and also the Draghi report, the recommendations that are given in these reports are actually really trickling down in Dutch policy. So we see that the Wenning report plays an important role with the new government. In the new government, there's one of the ministers is responsible for implementing the recommendations. So I'm actually quite positive that we can, as an industry and government together, can create this vision and this plan, because everybody sees the need. A few years ago, this maybe wasn't the case, but it has developed positively. So yeah, perhaps we should do this together, and it's also we're here at the pavilion, co-sponsored by the government, and that's also a good sign. So I think we're on the right track.
Yeah. So, and do you feel that this change of how the government is, perceiving the MNOs, that has been changing as well, so that there is room now that rather than seeing them as cash cows or as, I don't know, companies being the enemy, is there more openness to kind of really work together in this, to understand each other's perspective and work towards goals that can work for both companies and governments?
Yeah. Again, I'm positive, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So we will see when the spectrum auctions actually come up if this if they have listened. But I hope so.
Yeah, so we've highlighted several kind of challenges. The kind of idea that investment needs to be more structured, that basically everything kind of summarizes that there needs to be more collaboration between governments and companies and the whole ecosystem to make things move faster forward, including policy, including the various aspects, making actually long-term goal valuable. What needs to happen next? You know, what is, if you can prioritize, from your own perspective, so what needs to happen first?
Yeah, if I can talk for the 6G program, is execution. So don't start changing things, putting in new requirements. So we have a 6-year program, and it's all about execution. So if we have a Dutch saying, als de kip aan het broeden is, you should not disturb the chicken when it's breeding on the eggs.
Don't disturb it.
Don't disturb it. Do what we say, and don't start over discussions again.
So more doing,
and also that in an international context. So we have a large national program.
Yeah.
So one of our priorities is to align with other programs in Europe and do smart things together.
Okay.
So that's again the partnership, working together in the ecosystem. That's the way of doing it.
And Marga, where do you see the priority in your industry?
Yeah, it's a predictable implementation of the GIA with alignment with the other member states. So consolidation rules, market regulation rules, antenna policy rules. So clarity, alignment. That is important. If to mention the most important thing, that is creating predictability on the regulation together with the spectrum and clarity about the rule sets that we operate in.
Okay. And you, Mathieu?
Yeah, again, I think digital connectivity is one of the strong pillars when you look at sovereignty in Europe. We have sovereign networks, we have European vendors, and we should foster that environment. And we've discussed how you can do that, how government can help. So I guess that's it. We will invest if we are given the space.
Okay, very clear. And then, but what should governments then change if you want to make it very concrete?
Really define an industry policy. So industry policies in the past were dirty words.
Yeah.
We regulated the market, and the market was the answer to everything. The neoliberalism. I think that time is over.
Okay.
And again, the China example, a bit of a long-term plan. So define the plan, and the plan should not be a political plan, because what Peter Wenning says, the investment in our economy and the plan is not for the economy itself, but it's for society. In the end, to be able to pay the AOA and to be able to do the things for the people that we want to do, the social welfare, etc. And to be able to fund that and pay that, you need to have a healthy economy. So that's why you invest in it. So it should not be a political decision. It should be just a logic. Just so get a bit out of the politics and do
out of the politics, more into the action. And like, because we've heard about China now several times the past half hour. Is some of the visions of China, are they kind of possible to copy for us to be used as well?
Well, what they do is stimulate their industry. So what we and buy local. So we should also buy local. So if you want to buy a new car, buy a European car.
Yeah. So that's also a big message, I think, to everybody, each large company and also each government: buy local and support local. I see.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
I think we should buy local, but don't force us to buy local. Make sure that there are many vendors from many countries. Isolationism isn't the solution. You mentioned that in your introduction. We should always be able to select vendors. The vendor community should be broad and diversified. And it's okay if you use a Chinese vendor for a little for some specifics. For some specific part of the network, for example, because it also stimulates innovation in the European space. So no isolationism, no wall around Europe.
Maybe not
isolation. And then of course we will buy local as well.
Yeah. So I think a nice word is strategic independency, because you can't be independent. It is all linked together.
Exactly.
But be a bit smart about what you do and what you don't do, and that's a strategic choice.
And would that mean also more stimulation of because I know the investment climate and even the company climate, having a company, for example, in the Netherlands, is sometimes by also rules and regulations of the government not always made easy. Is there more stimulation needed from the government in that respect?
Well, there are all sorts of initiatives to simplify rules. So in the Netherlands, Vincent Karremans had one of his priorities to reduce rules. You also see in Europe the 28th regime. Those are very promising initiatives. That it should be easier to do business in Europe, and now it's a fragmented landscape. So it helps there if we get to one European landscape in terms of rules, regulations, labor market, trade, and well, actually the EU, we should with the European Union get to the next phase. But that's not a national thing; it's a European thing. But I think we should all embrace that.
If you can each name one sentence of like where, because we're rounding up a little bit the talk. So if each of you could name one sentence, what the biggest risk Europe is getting wrong and the biggest opportunity where Europe is getting it right, what would this then be?
Well, the risk is the dependency, the digital dependency, the dependency on technology from foreign. We have a network layer technology in Europe, but all the other layers in terms of the digital stack, we're pretty much depending. So there is a risk, and what we should do is embrace the European initiatives in various areas where now big tech is there.
Yeah.
And it will take a couple of years. But yeah, if you don't take the first step, you never can take the second step. So let's take the first step.
Yeah. Great. And Marga?
If we get it right, we can be a resilient, investable region of digital growth in Europe. That is what we can get right, just to add to all the details that we get. So there's so much at stake. And to get it wrong is that we missed that opportunity.
I like that. Well said. Thank you. And Mathieu?
Yeah, if we get it right, we leverage the strong position of the telecoms industry in Europe and manage to make them invest in the other layers. And I agree, if we get it wrong, then that would be that would be a shame. Yeah, and a lost opportunity.
All right, and I really want to thank you all three of your contributions. It was a really interesting panel discussions that we had, and very interesting to hear your ideas on this matter. So I'd like to have a big applause for the panel. Thank you.